computer. So, okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. Today we'll be speaking about green building trends and solutions in KSA. Those are getting more common and gaining more traction in the Saudi market. It's an obvious milestone and a transitional phase for the Saudi market, where the government is strongly leading towards sustainability and resilience. My name is Mohammed Naeem. I'm the Business Development Manager at Greener, and I will be both moderating and speaking in this webinar. Quick introduction about Greener. Let me just make sure the slide is moving. Here we go. So a quick introduction about Greener. It's one of the leading companies in Saudi Arabia in sustainability and energy efficiency services. It's part of Class A contracting company called HSE. We are licensed ISCO, a gold member of US Green Building Council. And through our services, we aim to help buildings and communities to be greener in the kingdom. Okay, here's the agenda of today's webinar. First, we'll be going over the most common green building certifications being pursued here in the Saudi market. And then we'll have an overview about the wide range of green building solutions that help us achieve green buildings. And then in this webinar, and along with our partners, we'll be presenting 3 highly effective solutions for green buildings. And by the end of the webinar, we'll have the Q&A session. So when it comes to green building certification, and based on our experience here in the market, LEED certification developed by US Green Building Council is actually the most common type of certification being pursued here in the market, especially for high standard prestigious projects, either by government or private sector. WELL certification is being also well introduced in the market and expected to penetrate more in the next few years. And the reason of that, in my opinion, is that the fact WELL certification is focusing more into health and well-being of the building occupants, which is something pretty much aligned with the direction of building operators and developers in the region. And then we have what's called Net Zero Energy Building Certification, developed by the International Living Future Institute, which highly focuses on energy performance of the building and deployment of renewable energy in the project. And then we got the Mustadam, which is like the most recent one among other systems here in the kingdom. And it's basically the Saudi version of LEED certification, if you like, and it's developed by the Ministry of Housing, and it is considered more more friendly to the Saudi market, environment and culture. It's inspired by the Saudi Vision 2030, and it's fully aligned with the Saudi Building Code. Now, before moving here, actually, it's important to know, let me just, yeah, it's important to know that all of these green building certifications are actually promote same thing. They promote best practices, they promote green concepts, products, solutions. And also something also common in this market, we have some clients who are saying, we don't want to choose any of these certifications. We just want to jump right into the green building solutions and implement it in our projects without seeking any of these certifications. You know, they're trying to save money, they're trying to make the project moving faster and smoother. So along with the market growth of the green building certification, green technologies and solutions are being more promoted and penetrated to the market. They include energy and water efficiency solutions, indoor air quality, recycling, green materials, and so on. Now, out of these solutions, we have selected 3 highly effective solutions that Greener work as a system integrator for. So we got EV charging stations by Schneider Electric, indoor air quality monitors by Kythera, occupancy sensor by Leviton. So with that, let me introduce to you the speakers of today's webinar, including myself, Mohammed Naeem. I'm the Business Development Manager at Greener by HEC. And then Muwaffaq Al-Saadi, Marketing Division Manager at Schneider Electric. Liam Bates, Chief Executive Officer at Kythera. Muhammad Anas, Technical Specialist at Leviton. So before getting to each solution, we'll just go ahead and give a brief background on how this solution is required to the relevant green building certification. So starting with EV charging stations, for example, it's basically required in LEED under location and transportation credit called green vehicles. The credit requires 5% of all parking spaces to be designated as preferred parking for green vehicles, 2% of the parking spaces to be equipped with EV charging stations, and it also requires the project owner to provide signage and pavement markings to highlight the preferred parkings of these green vehicles. So, and also under the LEED requirements, only level 2 and 3 chargers qualify for this credit. IEC 62192 standard compliance is required, which is meant for connectors of the EV chargers. And also they have some requirements for the communication protocols and features that is also required under this credit, LEED credit. So it's important to know that all of these above requirements are already being met and compliant with the products of Schneider Electric, the EV chargers of Schneider Electric. So here are some of the examples of LEED compliant projects we have delivered as a system integrator with Schneider Electric here in the Kingdom. It was actually for a diverse portfolio of clients, including residential, commercial buildings, showrooms, and others. And now let's hear more about the EV charging solutions of Schneider Electric from Muwaffaq Al-Saadi, Marketing Division Manager at Schneider Electric, Saudi Arabia. So the floor is all yours, Muwaffaq. Go ahead, please.
Engineer Naeem, thank you so much for this brief introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to wish every one of you a year full of health, joy, and happiness. It's our pleasure, indeed pleasure, to have you in this webinar hosted by our official partner for e-mobility, Greener by IHCC. My name is Muwaffaq Al-Saadi. I am leading the marketing division for home and distribution in Schneider Electric in Saudi Arabia. Today, I'll present to you a part of Schneider Electric's sustainable and energy efficiency solution, which is the EV charging station, which has the biggest trend in Saudi market, especially after the new regulation and standard, which were released by Saudi Standard Organization, SASO, by 22nd of June 2020. So here in this webinar, I'll be demonstrating some quick insights on EV, electrical vehicle trend shift, a global view of EV market, future of EV, and some potential roadblocks we might face in the coming future, crystallized by a solution. I will move to just a second. Okay. Let me just get to the slide. All right. Great. Okay. So why we exist as Schneider Electric? I'll give you a very brief introduction about Schneider Electric. Schneider Electric provides energy and automation digital solution for efficiency and sustainability. So we address different kind of segments like homes, buildings, data centers, infrastructure, and industries by combining energy technology, real-time automation, software, and services. So the main purpose at Schneider Electric is very simple, is to empower all to make the most of their energy and resources. To make this, to fulfill this purpose, We see our mission in a very clear manner. We want to be your digital partner in sustainability and efficiency. So the main challenge of our generation is probably climate change, but the good news that we are the generation that came to know about it. We are the generation, and probably the only one generation, that changed the trajectory of carbon emissions and therefore climate change. Now, when we say carbon emission, we mainly talking about the mobility segment, which is the transportation, which represent 30 to 35% of the CO2 emission. So that's why we are here with the electrical vehicle charging station. What you see on the screen is the visible part and the invisible part on underneath. So you can see on the right side, there is a tip of the iceberg where you can see a lot of vehicles, cars, whatever kind of vehicles, charging stations, cabling, all the things that belongs to the visible part of the EV industry. What we usually don't see is the underneath part, which is mainly the infrastructure, which is a vital part in order to have the right visible part on the top. So if you don't have the energy management on the right side, you don't have the source of the energy, no software, the IoT infrastructure, edge computing, all these things belongs to something called the infrastructure in order to provide the right solution for the visible part, which is at the end point where you charge your EV car, a van, fleets, whatever the function of this vehicle is. So the visible part is on the tip of the iceberg, and the infrastructure on the underneath the tip of the iceberg is the investment opportunity for all investors, specifically in the Gulf region and in Saudi Arabia. I will give you some trend shift that this is a global view, of course. You can see on the left side, it's not moving. Sorry. Mr. Naim, I think I need your help. It's not moving. Okay. I'm sorry for this technical issue. All right. I think now it's going to appear. All right. So here we can see that 2017, there's 1.3 million car has been sold out in the market. In 2018, there's 2 million cars sold in the market. In 2019, 2.1 million. And you can see the shift here, mainly coming from China. So this is the Chinese market in the orange one. The red one is the European, and the green one is United States. And these 2.1%, this represents the total, the average comparing with the total ICE car, which is internal combustion engines. So it really increased. Now we can see on the right side, you can see from 15 to 2020, this is the year starting from 2015 up to 2020, it is flat. There is no growth. Literally, there is no growth. It's a little bit small growth. But starting from 2015, onwards up to 2040, you see a huge and tremendous impact on the EV existence in the market. Today, it is 7.2 million number of EV on the road, running on the road at this moment, which represents 7.9 million accumulated number of charging points. So 7.9 is the charging point numbers that serves 7.2 million number of cars. As per the Bloomberg optimistic scenario, you will be shocked when I show you this numbers. By 2040, there will be 530 million EV cars on the road, which represent 560 million accumulated number of charging points. They are maybe not very optimistic, because the technology change that we are facing during the past 10 years is very rapid and very fast. So by 2030, I believe, this is my personal, I think, belief, that we might hit the 300 or 400 millions of cars within the next 10 years. By these kind of numbers, that gives you a very important investment opportunity in the infrastructure, because if you don't have the right infrastructure in the country, you'll not be able to proceed. You'll not be able to have this kind of numbers of the charging station. So this is in a glimpse, and this is information from the global view. Today, we have some limitation, we have some roadblocks. The first roadblock is the EV total cost of ownership. So anytime when you discuss with your colleague, with anyone, about EV cars, it goes directly to Tesla, the Model S, with $150,000. It's very costly. No, we are not talking about this segment only. We're talking about the whole segments. Now we have different manufacturers in the world, different kind of nationalities. Of course, we have the American standard American cars. We have Japanese cars. We have, Tesla, Nissan, Renault, Jaguar, many kind of cars and different kind of costs. Now, the main reason behind that is the battery evolution. The battery costs, it's going to be reduced in a very short time, because the quantity of the battery and because of the technology change that's happening in the battery system. Like Tesla right now, they are building the biggest battery solution, and eventually it will do some cost optimization. The second part is very important regarding the incentive plans by the government. For example, here in Saudi Arabia, we have 15% VAT. They might reduce it from 15 to 5% in order to incentivize the customers to go to EV. And the price parity globally, it's expected to be happening by 2025. The second roadblock is the AV range. In a couple of years back, we used to hear about 100 to 150 kilometers per charge. Today, we reach to 600 to 700 kilometers. By knowing that the average and the high share of the daily trip, this is on average for the average person or average driver, is less than 100 kilometers per day. So it's good enough even if you have a car with 200 or 300 kilometers per charge. It's good enough for you to take one charge per 1 day or 3 days. So there are new EV models also. It's being announced with higher rate of EV range. So both roadblocks are already clear right now. We only have the roadblock that exists in Saudi Arabia and most of the Arabian Peninsula and the Gulf region, and specifically in Saudi Arabia, is the availability of the charging station. And this is that represent the underneath the tip of the iceberg, which we call it the infrastructure. So the deployment of the policy with the government, the infrastructure and business model with public and private sector. So this is a very good investment opportunity for investors to invest on this kind of infrastructure projects. When it comes to Schneider Electric, the e-mobility of Schneider Electric, today we have 125,000 charging points all around the world, among 50 countries. Saudi Arabia is one of the 50 countries. We started in France since 2011, and luckily we don't have returns. Our return rate is less than 1% from 2011 until this moment. We have different kind of types of EV charging solutions. On the left side, you can see the wall smart wall box. This is mainly for residential segment. We're going to go through each and every one very quickly. The one in the middle is the floor standing for commercial building, which is AC also as well. And the one on the right side is the DC charging station, the direct current. We start with the first one, which is the smart wall box. It's the main feature of it is a wall mounted, mainly for residential and private buildings. The power, it goes in two different powers, 7.4 kilowatt and 22 kilowatt. I'm not gonna go in details in technical, but whenever you go higher with the kilowatt, is the faster. So if you are installing in single phase, you're going to take it 7.4. In the three phase, you are going to take it at 22. So it's exactly the same material and the same product, but it give you, it depends on your connection, which is single phase or three phase. Of course, if you need to install it on the pedestal, we have this option with the accessories. The most important part here is this is a smart wall box. That means you can track any single charge in case if you're using it in residential building between you and your neighbor, for example. So you charge, he's charged, you charge, and her charge, she charged. At the end of the year, you can get exactly a report how many one of you charged this car, how many times, and what is the kilowatts. So you get a printed log file, and you see each and every one by using the RFID card for authentication. And of course, there is a lot of I mean, load management system and load solution. There's an embedded web server inside the charging station in order to give you more communication and more log files. The second one is the floor standing, is mainly for commercial buildings. Almost the same feature, but this one is mainly metal enclosure. This is anti-vandalism. It's IK10. It's very good for, it's a robust design. I'm sorry. It's a robust design for AC charging station. It is designed for outdoor installation, IP54. There's all kind of protection. You can overload, short circuit protection, RCBOs, any kind of protection like the surf protection and earth leakage fault protection. Of course, the main feature of this also, it has two charging points. So both are at 44 kilowatt. Each and every one is 22 and 22. We have open charge protocol compliance, but this is not yet finalized by the Saudi Standard Organization. If you have a fleet, for instance, this fleet has to be managed by something called LMS, which is Load Management System, which is a software and a hardware by Schneider Electric, can be installed through our official partner, Greener. The third one, the last but not least, is the DC charging station, which is, we call it supercharge a direct current station. We have different versions. We have one connector, and you have two connector or three connector. It depends on the type of cars. What we recommend always is to have this on the highway, on the stations. We already also, we have a couple of projects right now. We are at the final stage, and we have a couple projects pre-installed at the PMU, for example, in Dhahran today. So we have this one Shadimo, and we have CCS, a different type of charging solution for different kind of cars. Like for example, CCS is mainly for Tesla and American cars. We have the Shadimo is for Japanese cars, and we have the Type 2 AC type here in the middle. If you can see it, this is on the top of the stop button, emergency button. This is AC type, Type 2 also as well for the normal, for the 95% of the cars which can be charged by the AC. So this is concluding my presentation. Thank you so much. Please, if you have any question, keep it at the end of the presentation with the Q&A. Mr. Engineer Naeem, it's back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mofak, for this nice presentation. And I think it's now time to move to the next solution, IQ monitoring. So let me just get the slide. All right, so as a quick background, Will rating system has a feature called air quality monitoring and awareness, which is worth of 2 points. And they need the building to be equipped with IQ monitors as per the following requirements. First, we need to measure at least 3 of these parameters in the regularly occupied spaces in the building, including PM2.5, PM10, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, ozone, total VOCs, formaldehyde and nitrogen dioxide. And you know, all of these pollutants are extensively sometimes existing in some of the built environment, and it's harmful for our health. So they also have the requirement that the monitoring density is minimum 1 per floor or every 350 square meter, whichever is more stringent. And they also require real-time display. At least one monitor screen is permanently positioned for every 930 square meter. So, and again, all of these requirements can be easily achieved by using Kythera IQ monitoring system, the product that we are about to have a presentation for. And now let me hand it over actually to Liam Bates to know more about Kythera solution for IQ monitoring. Liam, it's over to you.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction, and good to virtually meet everybody here. Unfortunately, I think I may have to jump out of the presentation before I can take you to the next slide. Sorry about that. We will get right back in. Okay. So thanks very much for the quick introduction. Just to say a little bit more, I'm the CEO of Kythera. My name is Liam Bates. We create solutions around air quality monitoring. If you visit the Apple stores, you might see our products there. We're the only air quality monitor that is sold in those stores. Our products are found in pretty much all the big Fortune 100, 500s out there. And of course, a lot of large tech companies. So we have quite a lot of different devices and different options to help people measure and understand their air quality. I won't go into too much detail about all the different options or solutions today. Happy to do so in the questions. But as you can see, we have devices which have screens and have monitors. We have devices without monitors. We have devices which fit in the wall, on the ceiling. There's a lot of different options. All right. Here's an example of a device that's actually mounted on a wall. This is in the headquarters of the IWBI. Thought this was a good one to use. The IWBI is the certifying body behind the well building standard, and Kythera monitors are what they choose to use to measure the air quality inside their own building or buildings. Of course, we have, as well as hardware, there's a web platform dashboard, as well as a mobile app, which you can use to view trends, see what's going on in different parts of the, your building, get notifications if there are issues that they can be addressed, etc. So when we talk about air quality, air pollution obviously comes to mind. We heard several pollutants just now, be it PM 2.5, PM 10, VOCs. There are a lot of things potentially in the air that are very bad for us. And when we look at this, there's really two different aspects. There's the long-term risk and there's the short-term risk. So, often when we think of factories that are spewing out smoke and maybe affecting our health, that's more on the long term. But of course, there are a lot of things that can impact us in the short term, especially inside the built environment. So here's some data just to share with everybody. This is from a study at the Harvard School of Public Health. And there's two statistics here that are very relevant. One is around CO2. So a 400 ppm increase in CO2, which is not that significant, but can lead to a 21% decrease in productivity. Now, ambient sort of outdoor levels of CO2, are typically around 400 ppm, and in buildings which not, which don't necessarily have a focus on sustainability and on health and well-being, it's not unusual to see CO2 levels that are well over 1,000. In conference rooms, it's not unusual to see CO2 levels up to 2,000 ppm. And of course, you can do the math on what that means for the productivity. The same thing, of course, with VOCs. As VOCs increase, there is a clear decrease in productivity. And if I can get the next slide to show up. Why is this important? Well, I'm sure a lot of people have seen images like this, where when we look at the operating costs of a business, the vast majority, approximately 90%, are staff costs. Right? So people are by far the largest cost to a business. And if on that 90% you have a 21% decrease in productivity, that is extremely expensive. So this is a very real cost when it comes to the business. I'm sure we've all felt like this guy when you have 15 people in a meeting room that was designed for 4 people, the ventilation is not working properly, and you feel terrible. And this is a direct consequence of the parameters in the environment. So the first step to improving the environment is, of course, measuring it. Here is one example. This is the office of JLL in Shanghai. They went for a WELL Platinum certification. And one of the big things that was done was an improvement around air quality. So air quality is measured, air quality is communicated. And after gaining their WELL Platinum certification, they reported a 20% decrease in sick leave. Of course, this is also directly tied to the costs of the business, the productivity of the business. And so very easy to view and visualize the ROI on this. So I just wanted to quickly walk people through a few case studies. So this is an example in partnership with a company called Delos. And this is in Australia, where we have one of our products, which you see right here on the wall, the Sense Edge, which is an air quality monitor measuring PM 2.5, CO2, total volatile organic compounds, TVOC, temperature, relative humidity. And it is connected to the ventilation system in the home. So these are individual residential homes, and each one has its own ventilation system and is being essentially controlled by this device. So if CO2 levels get too high, there'll be increased ventilation. If, for PM 2.5 levels suddenly increase because somebody is cooking and there's smoke, then the ventilation will increase, the level of filtration would be increased. And so this is really used to make smart and healthy homes. And then this is a partnership that we have with the Seoul government, where we are their official partner in measuring outdoor air quality. So in addition to indoor air quality, we also do some work with regards to outdoors. And so in a center, several square kilometers in the center of town, there's about 50 monitors installed on street corners, on lamp posts, to understand what is going on within the city. Where is pollution coming from? How is the air quality changing street to street? This, of course, can also be used to provide data to the BMS systems of the buildings so that they can do their job better. As I mentioned, IWBI, the International Well Building Institute, the body behind the well building standard. This is in their headquarters in New York. The image I had earlier was from their Asian headquarters in Shanghai, and these are all using our monitors to monitor their air quality, to get data which they can submit for their own WELL certification. And of course, this project is WELL Platinum certified. And again, just another project in Manhattan. And I believe there's about 30 air quality monitors spread out throughout the 2 floors of this office, and this data is used to do several things. One is to track trends and to better understand how the building is working, to automate ventilation, and to display the information on a large screen so that when you walk into the building, the first thing you see is what is our energy usage, what is the water usage, and what is the air quality within the space. So these are some simple case studies, and of course, be very happy to take questions at the end of this talk. So back to you.
Thanks, Liam. Thanks. That was very nice and actually insightful about some very important, but unfortunately overlooked kind of topic, indoor air quality inside the built environment. So now it's time to move to the last solution of today's webinar, which is basically the occupancy sensors. Now, giving just a quick background about it, like when it comes to energy efficiency, as you know, LEED and other green building certifications, they mainly use actually 90.1, the energy standard, as a reference. Section 9 of the standards is actually deals with both lighting and lighting control requirements. And as per table 9.6.1, which present the minimum lighting control requirements, occupancy sensors are required in automatic full off mode for rooms like classrooms, conference rooms, locker rooms, offices, restrooms, etc. And it is required in automatic partial off mode in areas like corridors and warehouses. Of course, corridor with some exceptions that is mentioned in the standard, like healthcare, some of the healthcare corridors, etc. So now I think it's time to hand it over to Mr. Anaz, who will let us know more about Leviton occupancy sensor products. The floor is yours, Mr. Anaz.
Thank you for your introduction, Engineer Naeem. Good evening, everyone. This is Mohammed Anas with you from Leviton Middle East. Leviton is a 115 years old company from US, and we are expertise in energy management solutions. So let me open the presentation. Engineer Naeem, can you run the slide? I'm not able to do that here.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Greener team, for inviting us to talk about the green building trends, which is one of the best practice to implement to build a better future. Today, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to talk about the occupancy sensors, which helps to conserve energy efficiently in an unoccupied space. Over this session, I'll be walking you through the use or need of occupancy sensors, technologies of occupancy sensors and its characteristics, and finally, the types of occupancy sensors offered by Leviton. So when I say occupancy standalone occupancy sensors, that it doesn't require any lighting control panel on the back end. It works on its own. So why do we use occupancy sensors? So turning off lights or HVAC system in an unoccupied space has become a necessity now. So people have realized the need of energy saving, and such that they accept to install occupancy sensors to save energy. So typical energy saving when using an occupancy sensor ranges from 15 to 90% in any commercial space. So in any building, maybe it a residential or commercial building, it varies from 15 to or 13 to 90%. A lamp or a LED light fitting replacement cycle may be increased double the times. For example, if you take any lifetime of LED, it says either it's 30,000 hours or 50,000 burning hours. By using an occupancy sensor and by setting up a right off delay time, that's very important, right off delay time, because if your off delay time is very less, for example, if the light turns off for every 30 seconds or every 1 minute, the ballast life will decrease. So by setting up a right off delay time, the lifetime of an LED or a lamp can be increased from double the time. So for example, if an LED is set to work for 4 years, it may work for 6 to 8 years. And finally, as Naeem mentioned, to comply with the energy codes such as ASHRAE, IECC, and Title 24. So next we'll move on to the detection technologies. The following are the detection technologies or practices followed in the industry. The first one is the PIR. PIR stands for passive infrared. So this sensor contains a heat detector semiconductor. So this is the heat detector semiconductor housed behind a lens. So this is the lens. So the lens creates zones. So this is zone 1 and zone 2. When a person moves from one zone to another zone, the change in temperature is detected by this heat detector, and that tends to trigger the sensor. So that's called PIR sensor. So the next one is ultrasonic. So the ultrasonic contains a pair of transmitter and receiver. The transmitter sends a high frequency signal, and if the receiver receives the same signal, which means there is no obstacle or there is no movement. When a person moves from one place to another place, or when there is a small movement, when there is a small obstacle, at the receiver's end, the frequency will differ from the one that is transmitted. So that tends to trigger the sensor. That's called ultrasonic. And the third one is multi-technology sensor, which is a combination of both PIR and ultrasonic to have a better efficiency. And the last one is the microwave technology sensor. So microwave also works similar to the ultrasonic sensors, but with a high frequency, which is about 5.8 gigahertz frequency. So the microwave sensors registers and compares the frequency of transmitted and reflected signal. When there is an obstacle or when there is a movement, the disparities between the emitted and received frequency will tend to turn on the load. So next we'll move on to some of the characteristics of all these sensors. By the way, Leviton adapts all these 4 technologies of sensors. So it's significant to understand its characteristics because you will know which sensor is suitable for a particular application. So here are those. So the first one is in terms of sensitivity to small motion. So PIR lacks in that. All the remaining technologies works better. So PIR needs big motion, large motion, when a person has to move their hands, wave their hands, or move from one place to another place. Nodding your head or working on your workstation will not help for the PIR to turn on the load. Whereas the multi-technology ultrasonic and microwave sensor works. In terms of coverage, PIR has got a long coverage area, whereas ultrasonic has less, and the multi-technology has more because it has got a built-in PIR, and the microwave sensor has got an extensive coverage. It has got a very good coverage when compared to all these 3 models. In terms of mounting height, PIR can be mounted at high ceilings, but ultrasonic and multi-technology sensors has to be mounted on the low ceiling, and microwave can be mounted at very high ceilings. Line of sight is something that a sensor has to physically see you or not. For the PIR, yes, the sensor has to physically see you. So direct line of sight is required, and multi-technology also required direct line of sight because the initial trigger is through the PIR sensor. The remaining 2 technologies, ultrasonic and microwave, does not require a direct line of sight. So impact of change in temperature and change in airflow. Impact of change in temperature, PIR is affected. Impact of airflow, the ultrasonic is affected. So it is advised to keep the sensors 6 feet away from the heat emitting sources or climate control devices. In terms of nature of room, the ultrasonic and microwave is affected because when you have a tile or a metal, it reflects the signal, and when you have a carpet or wood, it absorbs the signal. So next I'll move on to the Leviton occupancy sensors. So based on the application, Leviton occupancy sensors can be classified into ceiling mount, wall switch sensors, and fixture mount sensors are high bay sensors, which can be used for high bay or warehouse applications. Based on the electrical characteristics, Leviton sensors can be classified into low voltage sensor, which works on 24 volt DC, line voltage sensor, which works on 240 volt AC. Actually, it's from 120 to 277 volt, any voltage range. And then we have wireless sensors as well. Regardless, all our sensors have got 5 years manufacturer warranty from Leviton. So let's see what is low voltage sensor. So low voltage sensor works on a 24 volt DC. You've got a power pack which drives the load. When there is an occupancy and when there is a movement, this sensor gives a signal back to the power pack to turn on the load. And this power pack can be overrated in some cases. The second one is the line voltage sensors. We otherwise called as Pro Volt self-contained line voltage sensors because it has got a built-in relay. So the small wiring diagram here is shown, like how the load is connected. You have your line connected to the sensor, and you have a small relay which turns on when there is an occupancy, and the load is connected to the neutral. It's direct line voltage sensor. The best part of this sensor is it has got many features. I would like to list out very few of its important features. Like it works on voltage between 120 to 277, 50 to 60 hertz. So it supports any universal voltage. It has got a built-in photocell. On the next slide, I can show you. So it has got a built-in photocell which can be used for a closed loop or open loop application, which means it can be used as an indoor photocell or it can be used as an outdoor photocell. And one other important feature is that it has got industrial exclusive fail-safe circuitry. So when I say fail-safe circuitry, in any unforeseen circumstances or in any accident, if, for example, if there is a fire accident, if the sensor fails, it will not let the relay to keep off. It turns on the relay automatically so that the lights are always on. So this is a very life-saving feature that the sensor has got. Apart from that, it has got a BMS input or over emergency input, which can be connected to fire alarm or BMS, and you have a manual override as well. So next we have something called ProVolt PRC. The ProVolt PRC is the ProVolt room controller sensor, which offers daylight harvesting, efficient daylight harvesting. It's very unique and smart room controller. It offers a ladderless commissioning, which means you don't have to climb up to do any settings over there. All you do is just connect with this device over Bluetooth and then start to control or to configure the things. As you see here, you can set a lux level or a target lux level, and then based on the ambient light, it starts to decrease the brightness or increase the brightness, dim down or dim up based on the ambient light. So this is mainly used for the classroom applications and the meeting room applications. So the next one is the wireless technology, which we call it as LevNet RF. It works on a N-Ocean based technology. So here is the figure for that. So you have this is the relay receiver which connects to the load, and you have no physical connection between the relay receiver and the switch. This switch communicates through RF, which is about 902 megahertz, and the sensor also, you don't have a connection between the relay receiver or the sensor. Its sensor directly communicates with the relay receiver through RF radio frequency. So the best part about this particular product is even the switches does not require any battery. So when you press, this mechanical energy converts to electrical energy, and that electrical energy sends this signal. So this is otherwise called as N-Ocean technology. For the sensors, we have something called photocell, where you can see in old calculators, this photocell measures or takes the light input, and then that converts to electrical energy and sends the signal. So we have excellent services and supports. We have something called Leviton Portal. So if you have a very big project where you are looking for energy efficiency or to use our occupancy sensors, so you can directly log in to this portal and then register yourself, and then you can send the drawings to our team, and our team back in the US will give you the complete sensor layout along with the BOQ, which you can submit it to the client or the consultant for the approval. So this service is completely free from Leviton. It takes about 5 to 10 working days for them to get back to you with the complete proposal. So with this is how it looks like. So you have the coverage areas and the number of sensors placed here, and then you get a drawing and then a BOQ completely. So that's it from my end, and we are open to any questions. Finally, I would like to say with Leviton, your future is on. Over to you, Engineer Naeem.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Naz. Very nice and informative presentation. So now it's time to receive questions from the audience. So let me just make sure. All right, so I'll start reading the questions out loud, and then I will assign the as per the concerned engineer who can answer it. So how long it may need, I think this is for EV charging stations, so Engineer Mufag, how long it may need, in your opinion, to develop the proper infrastructure for EV charging stations? Are there any mass infrastructure projects ongoing or endorsed by the government?
Yes, indeed. There are very important. This is a very good question. Thank you, Mirza. Just for you to know that previously, before 22nd of June 2020, there were no any regulation coming from SASO. Today, we have this regulation, and we have also some percentage to be already applied for each and every parking station in any projects. Now, when it comes to infrastructure, it's not it started already with the government, but it's not related directly to EV. It's related mainly to the many different kind of loads. So EV is part of it. So in Saudi Arabia in particular, there's a huge infrastructure project, like for example in the northern side in the Red Sea. We are working on a big project for sustainability with lead with green, and part of the EV is a huge part. So in the infrastructure, they started to work with infrastructure with the medium voltage and the low voltage. There is no really a specific time for this infrastructure, but what we believe as a Schneider Electric, in the coming 5 years from now, it will be mainly the investment on the infrastructure. It will follow after that for all the things that related to the energy. I hope that I answered your question.
Okay, very good. So I will go over the next question from Mr. Mirza again. If the building is LEED certified, the enhanced IQ strategies credit is enough to cover these topics, or will provide something extra that is not offered by LEED? Maybe I will handle this project since it's like more into green building certifications. So basically, actually, according to enhanced IQ strategies under LEED credit, it's not as elaborated as well. That's true, because they are asking for more parameters and for more permanent kind of monitoring for IQ quality, where IQ enhanced strategy is actually only the overlapping area is that they're asking for CO2 measurements, and in CO I believe as well. So yes, they're not as detailed as well. That's right, 100%. Right. So we'll move to the next question. Which occupancy sensor is suitable for retail space? What is the best practice for using sensors in retail spaces, dimming type or and coverage area? So Mr. Anas, can you handle this, please?
Yeah, yes. See, when you're selecting sensors for a commercial space, mainly it depends on the area where you use the sensors. For example, if you have a corridor in a commercial space, you have to use a PIR sensor, because there is no point in having a multi-technology sensor over there, which is expensive again. So in the corridor, normally people used to walk around, right? They used to move. So PIR is the best practice. And for the office rooms, for example, there you can go with a multi-technology sensor. So when it comes to the best practice, like with Leviton sensors, we have an option, something called walkthrough. For example, you are installing an occupancy sensor in a corridor, and a person moves on the corridor. So, and we have set an off delay time of about 10 minutes, for example. So for the first movement, it detects, and for next 2.5 minutes, if it doesn't detect any movement, it turns off the lights at 2.5 minutes. It won't wait until 10 minutes, so we save energy. If there is a movement, after 2.5 minutes, so it goes to the normal off delay time, which is 10 minutes. So it depends on the application. Okay. And dimming time and the coverage area, it every manufacturer has they'll if you go through their data sheet, it will be mentioned like what is the coverage area, but you need to be very careful while you are using it in a narrow space, because when you move from one zone to another zone, only then the sensor triggers. Sometimes in the narrow space, you might not be moving to other zones, so the coverage area will drastically reduce. So it depends on the application, and you need to work out in prior to implementing this one at the site.
Right. Very good. So Amar Siso, he's asking, can we have the slides? Actually, we'll be sharing the link later on in all of our social media for the whole presentation. So it will be accessible to everybody later on. Mirza is asking another question, again for occupancy sensors. The power pack can support how many amps? Or in simpler words, how many regular lights, 20 watts roughly, can be connected to one sensor? Is multi-circuit connection possible?
Yeah, it's possible. And the rating of the power pack is 20 amps. Say if you have an application like you are controlling one circuit from 3 sensors, that's possible. If you have multiple circuits, I have 5 circuits controlled from one sensor, that's possible again. So that is how you do the wiring basically.
Right. Good, very good. So a couple of other questions. Let me. All of these. I think we are almost done here. Okay, I got a new one here. Check.
Yeah, Mr. Naim, I need to add something here important. I have a question also regarding Nissan and different automobile brands. Gentlemen, you need to know that, everybody, you need to know that we as a Schneider Electric, we are working also with the automobile industry. It's very vital for us for this kind of industry. So we're working with Nissan, we're working with Mitsubishi. We have recommendation letters actually from the global team. We have a BMW, MG, Land Rover, Jaguar. You know, it's mix of automobile industry, because we will not be able to work with them unless we are certified, unless we have the recommendation from the global. So I can confirm to you that we have the recommendation letter for most of automobile industries, and therefore you can today, if you would like to see something live in the automobile industry, you can go to a Nari Jaguar Land Rover showroom, and you can see already the charging station which are already installed by our partner Greener.
Great, very good. So we have a raised hand here from Mr. Jafar Al-Amri. Maybe we'll allow him to talk now to ask his question. Mr. Jafar, please go ahead. Okay, let me unmute first. Mr. Jafar? Are you still there? Okay. Okay, so maybe he's not attending the phone or something. All right. So I believe that was the last question here. So with that, maybe you can conclude our presentation today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending the webinar. Thank you panelists for your insights and very informative presentations. We really appreciate everybody's time, and everybody have a good rest of the day. Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you, Engineer Naim, and all of the team in Greener for this great initiative. We are glad to be part of the sustainable and energy efficiency solution. Thanks to everyone who joined the webinar. Please stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, guys.